Hey guys, it's Tiny Tom Logan back with another video for you, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Silverstone Raven RV03. It's the first, that's a great start, and it's the third in the line for the range of Ravens, but this is the first one that many of you would say the motherboard is kind of mounted, or at least the window is on the right side. They've put the motherboard on the other side of the case. But in doing that, it kind of created a lot of other problems, which is why this is probably one of the most complex of the Raven or Fortress designs. And pretty much, I think the easiest thing for me to do is bring you off the camera and take you around and have a look, as we always do, and yeah, have a good look around this case. Right then, guys and girlies. Here's your first look at the RV03. Now there is an awful lot to cover, so I'm going to start at the top and do my best to work my way round. But anyway, what we will do is we will start with the flap here, which exposes the two USB, what we'll call the front panel USBs, the USB 3, and then you've also got your microphone and your headphones as well. The USB 3s aren't internal headers, but because of the design of the case, your back panel USB 3s are only up here anyway, so you have got like the normal USB 3 connector plugins. You can see it hiding just there. There is a second one in there as well. This is your sort of, not your activity light, but obviously like your power lights. You know, your rig's on. That's your power switch, and that's your reset switch. Now the front does look quite plain, but I'm just going to sit down. But something I did think about, in fact I will come back to this, but this is something that we're going to cover in a second. I'm just going to show you around this side quickly. You can see that there's a vent on this side. You've also got a 120mm mount there for the back of the motherboard, but I've never been one for cooling the back of motherboards, but anyway, it's there anyway. But we have the vent there, which you can see the power supply cables, and yes, it's at the front of the case. If you have a look on this side, you can see that the power supply is there. Well, we'll get to that in a second because we're going to be taking the side panel off. Right, up to the roof. I'm going to remove the roof panel. Obviously I'm trying to do that with one hand, but that exposes the two USB 3 cables that I was speaking about before, and the usual kind of design that we've got used to with the Ravens and the Fortresses, where the back of the motherboard is at the top. One thing that you do need to note is that that's a fair old thickness there on the back of the motherboard tray, and that's not all just for cables, but we will get to that in a minute. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the side panel, which is windowed, and if you sit next to your case and your case is on the right hand side of you as you look at your monitors, then this is the first of the Raven or Fortress cases where the window has been on the correct side. Now ignore the fact that there's two different graphics cards in there for a moment, and I'm going to talk to you about, right now the camera's, you can just about see here. In fact, I'm going to stop the camera and I'm going to move the lights quickly. Okay guys, so I've moved the lights and the case. You can see here that there are 120mm fan mounts for the optical bays. Now there's basically two bays here, three optical bays. Both of them have got 120mm mounts, which are removable. But they've also got 120mm fan mounts on the other side as well. Now that made me think straight away that where's the air going to come from? What's the point in doing that? And it did kind of have me sat there thinking, oh, that's a bit weird. But the case is laid on its side now, but I'm going to show you anyway. These front panels you can remove, and there's mesh behind, so I'm going to remove three for you so that we've got the top ones off. and luckily that one's come out separately. Brilliant. Right, so you can see these, and that's mesh panels there for the air to go through. You can see that there's one of the mounts there for the 120mm fan. But as you can see, there's a dust filter there, and basically it's only a small gap, but there is a gap there right the way round, so that you can still get air into the front of the case. Now, as I said, it is a small gap, so that it's not going to be torrents of air there, but there is still airflow that you can get in the front of the case, so you can have fans pushing across this and still getting air in the case. And talking of airflow, there's also a mount at the back for another 120mm fan, and you've got two 180mm fans in the bottom, and they're the Silverstone 180s. Now, so we've got the usual 180s in the bottom. Generally, with the older cases, you would have had an extra 180 blowing up here to blow over the hard drives and stuff. But obviously, they've put the power supply in the front now. You can see the cable that comes around, and the the power supply power actually comes out there, and then will come around and go along the bottom of your case. Now, while I've got the case around this way, we've got magnetic dust filters for the 280mm fans in the bottom, but then also the power supply. But if you have a look here, there's also mounts here for a 120mm fan, should for some strange reason you want to change it. And then there's also mounts here as well. As I said, should for some strange reason you want to change it. Now, this 120mm, I'm looking for my ruler, hoping that I'm going to be able to find it. This 120mm bit here is a 15mm gap, which is a water cooling sized gap. So if you have a look, we've got fan there, there, and the other ones are hidden up on the other side of my light stand. But basically, that means you could fit, if you wanted, a 240mm radiator in the bottom. Now, if we have a look at the this is a, let's have a look, see how thick these 180 fans are. They're 30mm thick, most fans are 25. Now, if we said 25mm fan, and then went right the way up to the bottom of the 6990, which is probably one of the bigger cards on the market at the moment, you would technically be able to get 25, 70, so like a 40mm radiator in. But now this is why I'm trying to explain this as thoroughly as possible. The fans for the bottom are right over on the left hand side, and if you have a look down there, you can see that there's a ledge that covers up partially of the fan. So even though the mounts are there, they are only, and I'm stressing this, these are only intended for fans. There's not enough room on the other side to be able to fit a water cooling radiator, which is a shame, because if they'd have mounted these fans up higher, as they have done with this set, and basically move those down and move those fans up, you could have got a water cooling radiator in the bottom. But just to stress, this is really an air case anyway, as are all the other Fortresses and the Ravens. I wouldn't recommend these out the box for native water cooling unless you're, pretty handy with the tools. So it's a shame that it can't, bolt in straight away, but it's not been designed to be that way either. So Little bit of a complex explanation, but it's there nonetheless. Now, we've got a 120mm exhaust fan on the roof. Because of this 120mm exhaust fan, we know pretty much straight away that as long as the case hasn't got a side panel fan, that the D14 will fit. Obviously memory depending. And this fits fine, even though the fan on this is ever so slightly raised, still managed to get the side panel on even with the window, so not a problem there. Now, the explanation for the two different graphics cards, they are just there as an optical guide for you, because that's a 6990 and that's a 590, so that's the biggest card that Nvidia produce at the moment, and that's the biggest card that ATI produce at the moment. The 6990 is probably the biggest card that you can buy on the market at the moment, and as you can see, there is plenty of room. For the 6990, you're looking at, I'll turn my ruler around the right way, there's 35mm of room between the fan and the 6990, so ample room there really. And also the motherboard tray allows you to fit oversized ATX cases, so for argument's sake, the Rampage 3 Extreme is the ATX, which will come out a little bit further. You can see there's plenty of room between the outside from the motherboard to the bottom of the case, so you've got enough room that way. And also it's an 8-slot case, so you've got that extra slot. So if you have a graphics card that would normally hang off the bottom of your case, then you've got that extra room there as well. So yeah. So as you can see, we've squeezed our rig in, but now what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the camera quickly, flip the case over and show you what can only be described as a very complex back of the case. Right then, on to the back of the case. Now I've purposely not clipped any of these cables or anything in and down, because the majority of you out there just wang them behind the motherboard anyway. Now I've not used all of the cables that I could have done with the power supply. I've only got the ones in there that I needed. So I've got a SATA cable in there, I've got a Molex cable in there. So yeah, I've just got the stuff in there I needed. Now as you can see, you've got a 2.5-inch mount in the middle for obviously a 2.5-inch drive, like your solid state drives and stuff. But the way that the hard drives are fitted is quite wacky. Now essentially, if you have a look on these, you can see that you've got the rubber grommets, and you screw the hard drives in from below, as I have done with that one, and then they all screw into place. And as you can see, there's hard drive mounts. Well, there's 4 hard drive mounts, and the 180mm fans in the bottom do protrude a little bit to blow air up behind here to keep the hard drives cool. I've not really noticed any massive temperature increases compared to a fan that would be direct. There is between 3 and 5 degrees difference. But hard drives, to be perfectly honest with you, unless you're running them 24/7 and literally running at max speeds the whole time, you're not really going to notice any difference in reliability, to be perfectly honest with you. They're designed to be running at about 50 odd degrees anyway, so I wouldn't really worry about it. But just to show you that there are vents in the top for the air to get out, and there's also a vent at the rear of the case as well, so that you've basically got a reasonable amount of airflow there. There are plenty of cable clips and stuff, but because of the way the hard drives are mounted, unless you've got all hard drives in, what you can do is tuck the cables up in. So it's quite handy, because the majority of us are going to have 1 or 2 hard drives and maybe a solid state drive. So if you place things carefully, you can actually use these hard drive mounts to stash the cables in. I could have done a much tidier job of building this, but I purposely left it this way, because even though there's a fair amount of cables there, the door still fits on fine, because there is an immense amount of room between the outside of the case and the I'll turn my ruler around the right way, the outside of the case and the motherboard tray, you're looking at about 50mm, showing you my door there, I do apologise, I wasn't paying attention. You're looking at about 50mm of space, so 5cm. Obviously you need that so you can get the hard drives in and everything, but it all fits in there fine with plenty of room. And as I said, the hard drives aren't, you know, massively hotter than I would generally expect anyway. I've seen these temperatures with cases that are meant to have hard drive cooling anyway. Just to put it into perspective, a certain chassis that I did recently, which had all the hard drives bunched up in the front, even though it had 220mm fans on the front, the hard drives in that chassis were hotter than the hard drives in this. It was a certain black case I got sent by a manufacturer that was black, and I caused a bit of a stir by saying I didn't like it. But yeah, the hard drives in this case are cooler than in that case, just to kind of put it into perspective how, even though it is a wacky design, is quite well thought out. Anyways guys, I think it's time now to have a good old chinwag about this case. Right then guys, so time to have a bit of a chat about the RV03. Now I'm going to start with, as I have been recently, about talking about the awards, and then I'm going to move on to explaining why. Now I was in a bit of a dilemma with this one, because, right, basically straight away I really like this case, so I'm going to give it the OC3D Gold Award. The dilemma was the other two awards, because I'd like to give it the OC3D Innovation Award as well. Obviously the power supply right at the very front, all the hard drive bays right the way at the back, the 180mm cooling fans in the bottom, the fact that you've got the 120mm fans that you can have pulling in the front. There's lots of kind of features here that I really like, or that kind of deserve the Innovation Award, especially the way the hard drives are mounted at the back and the fact that they've moved the power supply. But the other thing that I wanted to give it was a Value for Money Award, because it's only 114 quid. And the white Fortress that I did before, or was it the Raven? No, it was the RV02. The white Silverstone that I did before, the Raven white one. Christ, I'm going around in circles, but anyway, that was immensely well priced as well. Now I thought that was a billy bargain because it was £140. This is only 114. I honestly did expect this to be about 140, 150 quid. So it's very, very well priced as well. But what I've decided to do is give it the OC3D Gold Award and the OC3D Innovation Award. And then just state, do you know what I mean, at 114 quid, this is an absolute billy bargain. Now, like I said, the Innovation Award, the fact that they've put, with all the other Fortresses, the hard drives have been right at the very front. Obviously that's now where the power supply is. So they've moved the hard drives to the back of the case, which is quite a brave move, but it does work. And especially once they're all kind of tucked away, out the way and everything, we generally just forget about our hard drives anyway, unless you're turning it into a server. In a gaming rig, you just want it there, you want them there and you want them to be, you know, tucked away, kept relatively cool, and then, yeah, you just want them to work and forget about them, to be perfectly honest with you. So, like I said, although it is brave, it's a fairly good choice as well. And let's face it, with a hard drive, you generally have to take your side panel off to remove it anyway. And if the way the hard drives are normally, you have to take two side panels off. So by having the hard drives in the back, you've only got to take the back panel off, undo a couple of screws, and everything's all in one place. So in that respect, it makes a lot of sense as well. Now the Gold Award, the build quality is great. It looks great with the little gold flashes and everything. There's several things out there, you know, nowadays that make me think, God, that would look amazing with that. Like the Gigabyte UD7 board that I've used in this. Obviously, you've got the P67 and the Z68 UD7, which have got gold on them. There's several brands out there now bringing gold features out on their graphics cards and on their RAM. So there's loads of way that you can kind of turn that into a really nice looking project. Obviously the LHD14 fits lovely, and let's face it, where the window is on the side panel, it's literally smack bang over the motherboard. So you can see both the graphics cards that we've got in there at the moment, which obviously I've only used 2 just for the kind of look around this video to show you different sizes. But you can see your graphics cards in there, you can see your board in there. It looks brilliant. If you were to put like LED runs or something around this as well to light your kit up, or you had LED fans or something, it would look amazing in the dark, or when you sat beside it gaming in the evenings. It's a really kind of rugged design as well. Now generally I wouldn't like this, but for some strange reason I do quite like this. So yeah, that's kind of where I've gone with the Gold Award, because it does tick all the boxes. It's a good price, it's a very, very good price. The cooling in it's great, it's easy to work with. Once you get your head out of the fact that things aren't generally in the right place, or the way we've been told is the right place, and Silverstone have kind of mixed up by moving all the parts all over the place, then everything works and works well. It's a quiet case. I forgot to mention actually, there are 2 little buttons at the top, so that you can turn the lower 180mm fans on low or high. And as with the previous Raven that I did, on low you can barely hear them. It's a very well performing, very good performing air chassis. Yeah, it just works really, really well. So if you're looking for a black Raven, and you like the kind of funkiness of this, and you want the window on the right side, then this will be absolutely perfect for you. I think that's a courier pulling up outside. I really do hope that they bring a white version out of this, only because I'd love to see what it looked like with white. Obviously I'm a sucker for white anyway, but it's an absolutely stonking case, and thoroughly deserves the Overclock 3D Gold Award and the Innovation Award. It's been a long time since I've had a case like this that's made me go ooh, and kind of I've actually had to think and look at all the different options and try and work out what's going to work and what's not going to work. Generally when I look at a case, within about 2 minutes of staring at it, I know what's in the right place, what's not in the right place, why something's not going to work. This actually had me, I've had it on the bench, kept spinning round and looking at it, been using it for a little while as well, to kind of get a bit of a feel for it. I actually built this about a week ago now actually. But yeah, and I really like it. And like I said, if there's any of you out there that are looking to build yourself an air rig, because I wouldn't say it's water cooling compatible really. You can get 120mm in the roof, but my own personal opinion of 120mm rads is just not really worth bothering with. Personal opinion, what I mean. Other people out there might like fans spinning up and going crazy all the time, but I'm really not a fan. I like my rigs to be quiet. But anyway, going round and round in circles, as I've said, Gold Award, Innovation Award, thoroughly deserves it. I really like this case. So yeah, it's a good video to finish the weekend with. And yeah, I don't really need to say any more, do I? Rather than dragging it out for ages and waffling on about loads of other stuff. But for now at least, this is Tiny Tom Logan with another video for you